And we also have with us tonight, Jill F.
Alice, principal of BMR.
And Tanya.
Hi, Tanya Kerhord, principal at Hartnett Middle School.
Thank you all very much. Thank you for joining us. I don't think our student reps, I don't know if we told them when we were virtual, but I don't think they're on. So hopefully they'll be able to join us again, but not today. So we'll skip that. I have first on our agenda, our consent agenda A, warrants and minutes of the December 9th meeting. I'll entertain a motion to move consent agenda A.
So moved.
Okay, I got Tara, and is there a second?
I'll second Amanda.
Seconded by Amanda, thank you. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of moving consent agenda A, say aye.
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 Aye. Second, anybody opposed, say nay. And any abstentions? Okay. Tim, would you like to introduce yourself?
Tim Howell, Blackstone.
You and welcome. At this time, we are open for public forum, although I know that this meeting is being live streamed and there's usually a delay. So if you would like to present a topic to the school committee or present an issue for future school committee consideration, you can type it into the chat. We may revisit public forum later in our meeting to see if there is anything in the chat that people want to share with us. So we will move forward to school committee items. I only have a few, one of which is the commissioner has pushed back his mask mandate at least until February 28th. So we had said that we would revisit the mask issue every month. So for the month of January, we will simply continue that masks are mandated. If people are in the building, by anyone entering our buildings must have a mask. And that will continue at least through the month of January and February. I'm sure Karen will have more on that later, but that's where we are with that right now. The second item that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention is that I received a letter today from Sarah Williams, a representative from Blackstone, who has let us know, or let me know, that she is no longer able to fulfill her commitment to the school committee. She has a new job, and between the job and graduate school and her family, it has become very difficult to her. So she has submitted a letter of resignation effective February 11th. So I sadly accept your letter, Sarah. I'm glad we're virtual, so I don't burst into tears or anything like that. But you have been a huge asset to this district, to this community, and to this committee. So I thank you for your service. As she said in her letter, it will continue till February 11th. And we will notify the town of Blackstone, but because we are prior to elections, I am hopeful that it will just be another position on the ballot. So there would be two positions open, the one that was originally due for this year, and then Sarah's position. So it'll be a shortened one. I don't know. Sarah, how many more years did you have left?
I want to say it was 2024.
Okay. So it would be for a shortened term, but there would be two positions on the ballot, as opposed to going, I'm hopeful we can do it that way, as opposed to going to the Board of Selectmen and appointing somebody for a month who then has to run for 2 years, on the ballot anyway. So I'm hopeful we can do it that way given the timing, but I'll be sending a letter to the Board of Selectmen in Blackstone to notify them of the resignation and come up with a plan. In addition, I did talk to Tara, who serves on the Capital Committee, and she has agreed that at least until we come up with next steps, that she would chair the Capital Committee. So she'll work with Sarah to transition that, but thank you, Tara, for agreeing to take that on. So that's what I have for school committee. I will turn this over now to Dr. DeFalco for the report from the superintendent.
Thank you very much, Shane. Good evening, everybody. I would like to open, we have 3 items this evening under my report. I'd like to open with an update from our nurse leader, Karen Young, who's going to give just a very brief overview on where we are with our cases to date. Karen.
Not good. I thought in December we were bad because we went from 47 in November to 120 in December. We're currently at 197 in January. We've had 418 cases in this school year, and we've had 72 since Sunday. There's been 87 now at the high school, 101 at the middle school, 141 at the complex, 81 at Millville, and 8 district. For in-school close contacts, I didn't update my sheet there. We've had over 2,100, and 639 have done test and stay, 148 vaccinating, 307 have quarantined, and 51 have been previously positive. Today alone, we had 5 positive during test and stay, so that's always fun. For vaccination rates in the town, Blackstone for 5 to 11 has 9% vaccinated, 12 to 15 is 50%, 16 to 19 is 56%. The town as a whole is at 58%. For Millville, 5 to 11 is 10%, 42, 12 to 15, 16 to 19 is 61, and overall Millville is 48%. In the schools, the high school remains 55% vaccinated. The middle school is up to 42%. Complex is at 13%. And Millville is at 6%.
Karen, will you read the school numbers again? Just so
Yep.
everybody gets them, because we're rattling off a lot of numbers.
Yep. High school is 55. Middle school is 42. Complex is 13. And Millville is 6.
Wow.
Yep. Okay.
As far as positivity percentage, Blackstone as of today, the numbers came out, is 97.59. Millville is 24.61, and the state positivity percentage is 21.52. So both towns are above state average.
Can you say Blackstone again? Because I heard 95%, so I don't think that was right.
27.59.
Oh, fine. Okay. Thank you.
You're not alone, Jill. I heard 97.59.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah, I was like, I think I heard something that can't possibly be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not good, but not that bad.
And Millville's was 24. What was Millville's?
24.61.
Okay. Wow.
I remember when we were talking about being above 5% and, traveling to another state that, so these numbers are just, it's crazy.
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you, Karen. Anything else?
Not for me, unless anyone has any questions.
Anyone have questions for Karen? I truly appreciate the job that you're doing. I can't even fathom what you're seeing every single day. So
Thank you.
thanks for holding down the fort.
Actually, I do have one question. Sorry. I know our last meeting we're always updating the policies, and we updated that we're accepting the rapid test as a negative for close contacts? Or my question is, are we accepting the rapid at-home test for across the board right now? Or are they not accepted for kids or staff that leave symptomatic and are unvaccinated and can't return without a test?
That is what the DESE has said, a PCR for those symptomatic, unvaccinated close contacts. But if someone can't find a PCR, I mean, they still have to be out for the 5 days if they're unvaccinated. So if they can get any kind of test, it's better than none.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
The rapid test, including the at-home, are now accepted for positives, close contacts, and symptomatic.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Jane, if I could, I just would like to say a big thank you to all of our staff the past couple of weeks. We've heard all kinds of stories from school systems all over doing, shifting to remote and doing all other kinds of things. I'm, including my own children, frankly, that's in remote right now. But I'm really proud of our staff. Everybody has been pitching in and doing everything. And I really can't think of a specific way to say that, from lunch duty to bus duty to covering classrooms. It has been a real team effort to keep things open, moving, safe, and I could not be more proud of the staff and our families for really working with us to help kind of figure out how to implement the new phase of protocols. They've been just really cooperative. I super appreciate that. I'm CC'd in a lot of the communication and the back and forth between Karen and our families, and the screenshots of different things coming in and doctor's notes. And I'm just really grateful. I'm grateful to the school community, to our staff, and our students. We've had over 15% of our students out each day. And that's just, a weird feeling for kids to look to their left and right and see that their peers aren't always there. I think sometimes we minimize that. We're really working at it. We're trying to do our best. We're keeping things open. We're keeping everybody safe, learning the best we can. And we're continuing the work, which we'll hear about tonight. So I just want to say a huge thank you to the school committee, to the school community, to our staff and students for just continuing to kind of, muscle through this. We knew it was going to be rough after vacation. I don't think anyone thought it wouldn't be. So we hear these numbers, and yeah, they're big numbers, but I don't think anyone thought that there wouldn't be challenges after. So we're doing what we can, and I'm glad we're keeping the focus on the social, emotional, physical health of our students and the teaching and learning, which is what we're about. So just a big thank you to everybody for keeping that happening.
And thank you to you.
Karen, if it's okay to wrap up with your report, we'll shift gears to the middle high school dual enrollment overview. This is something that we are really excited to be here this evening to talk about, and really just kind of give an overview this evening. This will be the first of a few conversations for sure about a new pathway we are looking to put in our school system that really bridges the relationship, the academic relationship specifically between our middle school students and our high school, that has opportunities not only on the earlier end for our 8th graders, but also on the back end when those 8th graders are our juniors and seniors at BMR. So if you could bear with me for 1 minute, I'm going to share my screen and hang on a second here. This is not what I want to share.
But it's beautiful.
And by now, I would be better at this. It's like amazing. Okay, this is crazy. Hang on. Nope, I don't want to share it. I want to present it. Oh, good God. There we go. Ms. Fowlis and Ms. Kurt are going to actually talk us through this evening. and give a nice overview of what this potential grade 8 academy, this new accelerated learning pathway could look like. So with that, I'll turn it over to our two principals.
Great. Thank you for the time. This has been a collaboration with, right now it's in its infancy stage, but we're fleshing a lot of things out, and we're very excited about presenting this to the school committee and to the community. Tanya and I, along with the counselors at the middle school, Sloan and Denise at the high school, have been working on a way to look at an acceleration pathway for our grade 8, and I've kind of labeled that grade 8 academy. So, Tanya, do you have the slides, or just Jason?
I do, and there we go.
Advance, please, thank you. You could be our van.
I was going to say, we practice with me controlling the slides, but so I'm actually going to just speak first. So just so that many people who already have their child participating in extracurricular activities already know the partnership of how we work with the high school. So pretty much all of the athletics, there's only basketball. I believe we added soccer this year. That was just middle school, but most of the athletics is done with high schoolers as well in conjunction, just because of the amount of students. The drama club is in conjunction. However, especially the last performance we just had, it was almost all middle school, but it was taking place at the high school, and the students, use the stage up there, but it is something that's offered to both. We actually didn't put it on here, Jill, but I just thought of it, is the ski club that we do run. That's part of the middle school budget, but we do open it up and offer it to high school. So unfortunately, due to the sleet on Sunday, the mountain wasn't open, so we didn't get our first visit, but they will be doing that this Sunday, and it is in conjunction with high school and middle school, as well as band. I know when the band won and came in front of the school committee, they shared out how many middle schoolers are part of the marching band. So that is one other part. So there's two things in the middle school that we've offered for students that happen at the middle school and are taught by middle school staff, and that is Spanish 1, that I work to try to ensure, while yes, 30 students is a large number to have in there, I want to make sure the students have that opportunity to be able to go to the high school and take Spanish 2. So I like to keep the numbers high in that class, even though they have been high. The students always do very well in that class. And the other one is Algebra 1. So this year we do have 2 teams in the 8th grade. And so there are actually, each team has an Algebra 1 class. So this way, when the students get to the high school, they can take Algebra 2. However, they're not getting graduation credit. So they're being allowed to take the next course, but they do all the rigorous work of it being a high school class in 8th grade, but they're not getting that graduation credit because it's done by middle school staff in the middle school and not at the high school. So that is why this is what we're coming to you with this idea, so that the students can have the opportunity to get those graduation credits from these kind of courses.
Great.
And Jason, next slide. Perfect. Jill?
So we're looking at these accelerated learning opportunities, particularly focusing on math and science with our Project Lead the Way pathway, which is a continuation of the modules that our students are receiving at the middle school as well. I want to say that while this is accelerated learning, I don't want this to seem like this is just an honors opportunity. We're looking for students who are interested in challenging themselves and present that academic responsibility, that are interested in pushing themselves and coming in. And the benefits that we're going to see are this early college pathway, because high school credit can start being earned at the 8th grade level. And then on the end, we have a partnership that we just started with QCC, It's brand new. Mr. Stars at the high school has done a great job. We have right now 4 students who are enrolled in the spring course to get us started with the end. And obviously the whole idea of this creativity, communication, and collaboration piece is pushed by our Portrait of the Graduate. And all of our work has been doing that across the district.
So in order to be part of the academy, what we would have is an application process. And part of that process, we would be giving consideration to the academic responsibility of students, the social emotional readiness, their commitment to the program, teacher recommendations, and also parent guardian commitments.
So looking at it from the end, we're looking at that challenging coursework, which doesn't, excuse my dogs, which doesn't necessarily mean, again, that honors piece. But at the other end, ability to take those AP and college courses, college opportunity. I had, and I presented this to the faculty yesterday. I had one teacher say that she engaged in this in 8th grade and was able to have a full year of college done under her belt before she graduated high school, and was able to graduate college in 3 years. So we love that. Pushing yourself and looking at that transcript, and a way to look, there are some absolutely amazing things happening at the high school, and with our pathways and our realignments and this creative piece, and my faculty is phenomenal. And so I'm really want our students to have the ability to take as much as they can to enrich their lives, and to start maybe figuring out what their passion might be early on. So this is what we're hoping for our intended outcomes.
And so if I could, thank you, Jill and Tanya, very much. If I could just very quickly kind of share just a real summary kind of piece to this. You know, the goal is to start an accelerated learning opportunity for 8th graders to take, as Ms. Fowlis mentioned, a couple of courses at the high school for credit, so that as they near their junior, senior year, they actually have room in their schedule to take some of the dual enrollment courses for credit through Quinsigamond Community College. So the idea is to create this pathway that starts some of that coursework early, so that they can open up their college experience while still in high school.
So the piece that talked about the commitment from, back one slide, the piece that talked about the commitment from the parents and the recommendations, is that for both pieces, the middle school students who want to take the high school classes and the high school to college, or is that for the middle school?
Well, it would tie into both, because obviously with some of the QCC programs that we have, you would see that being some of it are evening classes. A lot of them right now that we're engaging in is the virtual piece, but I think it's going to be really important for the parents to know the commitment that their son or daughter will be putting in to having courses actually at the high school. So I think that we want to understand that. And that's actually our next piece. And one thing that I forgot to say is that Tanya shared a survey with our 7th grade families. And right now we have 38 families who have responded. And of those 38, 37 had said that they're interested in learning more about this academy.
Well, and so if somebody's taking, and QCC is Quinsigamond Community College, I assume, yes. If it's not remote, if it's not a virtual class, they have to get themselves there?
That is correct. Right now for the spring, we have students engaged in all remote courses.
Yeah, surprise.
2 of our students are taking actually criminal justice, and that is a Friday evening course.
Oh,
so
nice.
After the school day. We have another person taking a math course, and one taking the early college. And the early college fits right into the day and rotates as it is asynchronous. But we also have the ability, we have some students in our current junior class who are interested in actually doing a dual enrollment, a true dual enrollment program, where they would earn high school and college credit, And they would still be able to participate in anything that we do here, but would not be in our building. So a true dual enrollment experience.
So what would the true dual enrollment, what do we need to do to get that moving?
That's ready to go, and we're working. I'm working with Mr. Stars to have that fleshed out and in our program of studies for our class of 2023.
Okay, so, and I'm assuming that's through Quinsigamon?
That is through Quinsigamon.
Okay. Would the classes be at BMR, or would we need to provide transportation to Quinsigamon?
No, that true dual enrollment, if they're taking all of their courses at Quinsigamon, then that's part of where the parent commitment comes, where the student would be engaged in classes, whether they're virtual or not, but many of those classes would be on campus.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Tammy,
What is our expected cost for this? I looked this up after our one-to-one meetings, and the in-state tuition for Quinsig is about $205 per credit. So what are we looking at potentially for a cost?
So this is the collaborative, excuse me, that we're involved in right now. The spring courses are $250 for a 3-credit course. They anticipated is that it may go up, but that we budgeted in the budget money to go towards this program for next year at a rate of $350 for a 3-credit course.
So to that question, right now at that rate, we've budgeted for approximately $14,000 for the enrollment course, the enrollment costs.
Which is 40, is that about 40 classes, Ms. Fowles? Okay. So this year it's $250 for the class, not $250 per credit. It is $250 for the entire 3-credit course. And then next year, they are still working on their numbers, it sounds like. So we've budgeted $350 per course, and not per credit, but to go to that.
but that's for the people that take the course at the high school. A student who would do a true dual enrollment, would they be responsible for their enrollment at the?
Yes.
Yeah, because they can, well, there's a lot of things they can do through the college to support that, but if they're truly enrolled in the college, taking the courses at the college, we as an institution would not, as a district, would not pay for that.
Yes, and that's how it will be written in the program of studies as well. We have seats. The money that Matt mentioned that is budgeted is for seats for, like, for example, we're going to offer English 101 and English 102. We will offer, again, the criminal justice course, the early college course. The math course they actually offer is free. And there's a whole list of courses that our students can access. And
That's awesome.
also Quinsigamon will offer if we have 10 kids enrolled, so say we have 10 students who are ready to enroll in English 101, they will have a dedicated professor instructor for our kids, and we'll meet our rotating schedule.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're very excited about this. And
So parents listening, let's build a cohort.
I'm not that good at the dual enrollment program that I'm teaching in right now. It's like, this is what it is. Sorry.
We could talk offline, Jane.
Anyone else have other questions? Well, I for one think this is long overdue, so I'm excited to see where it goes. Do we need to do something with this, Jason? Just information?
Just information at this point. Looks like Aaron might have a question.
Okay, Aaron, go ahead.
Just came to mind as you were going through the slides, when you pointed out what we already have working together, will we be keeping the option of Spanish 1 and Algebra 1 at the middle school, or will that
So
dissolve?
Spanish one is not something they would take at the high school, so we would still have that at the middle school. But this would be, if you wanted to be taking Algebra 1, it would have to be taken at the high school. And then they have the option of taking the science.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you.
I said use the word option. I shouldn't say. So they're taking the math and the science. That's what they would commit to, is taking the Algebra 1 and then choosing which one of the pathways of the science they would want to take.
Okay.
Thanks, Tanya. Okay, thanks, Ms. Fowlis and Ms. Kirk for joining us. You certainly are welcome to stay, but if you want to join us for our thrilling budget discussion, but by all means, if you'd like to exit, you can do that too. You have your workshops coming up anyhow in a couple of weeks.
So
I was just going to say, don't worry, your invitations are in the mail.
And on the calendars.
They're fine.
Yeah, I'll see you next week.
Thank you. Thanks so much, ladies. Have a good night. So the next item on our agenda is to take a walk through our preliminary FY23 budget. And I, again, am going to share my screen so we can bring the slide deck up. I think I did this one a little bit better. Got it here. Okay. Matt and I are going to take some time and talk through with the committee and the community where we stand now, that we have all of our numbers together, and that we have all of our materials and resources and positions that everybody has asked for all in one place. As you know, in our December meeting, we talked quite a bit about our priorities, and we looked at our prioritization around our kind of staff and materials as it relates specifically to our district improvement strategy, and spent some time really looking through what our cost center managers shared with Matt and I that would be important for each of our unique school buildings to continue on their improvement journey. But of course, when that all threads together, it connects to our district improvement strategy. And we are still staying very focused on our curriculum instruction, the whole child and community. And you're going to hear and see a lot of different evidence of this as we go through our budget this evening, draft budget this evening, I should say. And one of the things I want to mention, and I'm going to turn this over to Matt in a minute, and I know he and I are going to kind of share the info this evening together, but this is a very preliminary budget. And then Matt will get into the specifics of what I mean exactly by that. But anyone tuning in at home, I want to make sure that we're stressing the fact that the budget workshops come after this. And that's when we delve very deeply into each one of these lines or cost centers, if you will, and really look at what we can prioritize as it relates specifically to our district improvement strategy.
So a recap of what we've done to date. So far, as you know, the district leadership and the school committee agreed on the FY23 timeline. Dr. DeFalco and I met with the principals and asked them to identify their needs that they were going to require in order to continue addressing the remediation that has to continue at our schools, both academically and social emotionally, while continuing to advance their instructional focus. So even though we still have the lingering effects of COVID and we need to remediate the students' gaps, we are not losing focus on the growth that we need to make and the instructional focus of each building. So after we discussed these priorities with the principals, each of the principals went back to their buildings and discussed the budgets with their teachers and their cost center leaders. And together with their cost center leaders, the principals put together their departmental and school budgets, and they had a strong focus and connected all of the work to the district blueprint 2.0, the district blueprint 2.0, excuse me. Afterward, the superintendent and I met with each of the cost center managers and reviewed every one of the budgets in detail. And the last step, which occurred since the last time we presented just our key priorities, Dr. DeFalco and I specifically met together on 3 to 4 days and put about 9+ hours combing through every individual line of the budget and really combing through and seeing what things we could address and adjust. We had a 5-year trend of expenses for every one of the budget lines, and we went through line by line, compared what was budgeted in the past, what we were looking to budget this year, and compared it again to what the 5-year trend in expenses was. And we were able to, at that point, through that process, shave over $150,000 out of that, of the priorities that were submitted by the principals and the cost center leaders.
And so just a quick overview of who we're serving, specifically our student enrollment. You can see our enrollment numbers are currently about 1,538, so 1,538 students. And the breakdown by demographics is listed here. And this is as recent as our October student certification. So these numbers are all updated as of our October submission to the Department of Education. One of the numbers I just want to bring to our attention, I think it's important, and I know we talk about it, and you know, it can be a tough number to discuss, but our high needs are almost up 10% from last year. So we're looking at just under 50%, or 46.7% of our students are high needs. And just to remind everyone what that is, that means students who are eligible for free reduced lunch and or are English language learners and or are students with special needs. So we have approximately half of our student population that qualifies. And that isn't any, that's not being shared for any other reason than we just need to make sure that our system is responding to the needs of the children that we serve. And that's the only reason that I highlight that. We have a focus in our school district on all kids. All means all students. And we love our students, we welcome our students. We just need to make sure that our budget is supporting the resources and supports that we need for all students. So I reference those students because, you know, we just spent a few minutes hearing a little bit about an accelerated learning pathway. And so it's important to our families that are tuning in to understand that we are working diligently to make sure that all students have what they need on all ends of that learning continuum. And I also want to be clear that I'm not implying that students that are in these combinations are not accelerated learners, because they are. But it's important that we have programs for everybody and services and supports for everybody. Just a quick overview on our state determined measures. This is really important. We did spend some time in October talking through our proficiency and growth rates. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on reviewing that data this evening because we've already walked through it at great lengths. But essentially the two data pieces I think that are important to mention, or three really are the top few, and that, you know, while our state did not assign any accountability status to any schools, if you go back to when accountability status was assigned to schools in terms of needing interventions or supports, none of our schools are in that situation. And so I think that speaks to the work that our educators and our families are doing with our students every day. Our graduation rate is just under 97% with a 0.7% dropout rate from last year. And again, we know that those numbers, the graduation rate numbers, are a little bit different because of what was referred to as competency determination, which means because of COVID, each graduating classes has slightly different requirements for passing MCAS. And so we know our graduation rate looks a little bit higher than it did the year before we entered into COVID and they started making some of the adjustments to our graduation requirements at the state level. But I will say that even before then, our graduation rate was just under 95%. So it is not that far off from where we were. So again, a testament to our educators and our children. So I just wanted to make sure to highlight that because it's important to really show, particularly when we're talking about the budget, who we're serving and how we're doing. And this gives a snapshot on how we're doing. Of course, we know that our proficiency levels are not where we want them to be. But again, the MCAS was a different structure last spring. And we did put next to it the state averages. So you can see where we are in regards to the state. Not that that's our benchmark because it isn't, but it's just a good comparison point.
And on slide 6, we have a grant update. I will not list every one of these, but I do want to point out very specifically at the top, these were competitive grants, that many of these were competitive grants. And in particular, at the top, you'll see almost over $700,000 that we've received to support our career pathways work. Between the biomedical pathway grant that we received, the engineering manufacturing pathway, our career development coursework, our engineering, and the BV Excel program, you can see that we are putting in addition to a ton of effort, we are putting in a ton of resources into this career pathway work because we want to make sure that this is successful. And we have really received a ton of funding to make this work possible. And this slide in general, we present because these grants total over $2.81 million in additional funds for programs, supplies, and staff. Now, when we talk about the funding for the district, over half of our initial funding comes from Chapter 70 to start. Just to fund our foundation budget, we receive over half of that funding from Chapter 70, which is the state funds we receive. And we want to point out that in addition to the tuitions and the fees that we charge that we apply and the entitlement grants that we apply, we also have this entire list of $2.18 million that we also put into that funding to make sure that we're supporting all of the programs.
And Matt, if I could just add to that, the underline, you'll see that some of these are underlined and some are not. The underlined grants are new. So you'll notice that the others that are not underlined have, year 3 or year 2 of implementation. And one that we applied for, we have not heard yet. It's an additional school safety grant. But you'll see that the ones that are underlined are new. So we are in our first year of implementation of that. And that's important because these were written when people were just trying to get through the day and make it through COVID. And I cannot express the pride I have in our system for not living in that space. We kept this level of work going at all levels from the classroom through to make sure that our students would have what they need, not just during dealing with the COVID situation, but after, and making sure that these programs and resources are in place.
And again, to demonstrate the support that we put into the proper staffing and addressing the needs of all students, you can see on this slide 3 major sources of funding. Again, outside of Chapter 70 or the town assessments, we have our ESSER 2 grant with which we have put in math interventionists, reading specialists, and our 2 elementary STEM teachers. You can see that the ESSER 3 grant is funding another math interventionist. We have a secondary ELA interventionist, a science interventionist, and a part-time middle school counselor. And our Title I funding and some of our tuition, the tuition predominantly goes towards pre-K costs, but you could see, again, Title I math interventionists, reading interventionists, a Title I entire ELA interventionist position, and more than almost a full 2.0 from Title I. And those pre-K paras, those are funded with tuition. So we want to demonstrate, again, the extent to which we're applying all of the funding sources that we have to make sure that we are servicing the students and keeping all of our programs running properly and making the strides that we need to and getting through the remediation that has to be made and advancing our district.
So what's driving our budget for FY23? And we've talked about a few of these items already, but just to highlight a couple, it is about closing gaps and moving forward. We are looking, as the school committee knows, we are looking at a new district strategy or revised, not to worry, I don't think the fidget spinner is going away, but we're looking at, as we're finishing up year 3 of our current strategy, where do we go next as a system? As everyone is aware, our current blueprint for district improvement really is foundational work. It's curriculum alignment work, it's instructional framework development, it's putting support, social, emotional, and behavioral supports in place for students and bringing the communities together around the schools. So we're looking at where to go next, and we need to ensure and anticipate that our budget is going to be in alignment with that. So it's a little bit of flying the plane and building it at the same time, I guess is how you would explain that, but that's a really important piece to it. The other is making sure that we are focused on not only our curriculum and our instruction, but also those non-academic barriers. We've seen a lot of challenges, social, emotional, and behavioral challenges as our students have come back to school. And we remain focused on making sure that we have everything we need to help our students minimize those barriers so that they can focus on their learning. And then, of course, lastly, as Matt has already mentioned a few times, that focus on our career development and dual pathways work. We are a small system, but we are a mighty system, and we really are trying hard to be all things to all students the best we can. And so I think you'll see evidence of that as we continue to move through our budget process this cycle.
That being said, there are barriers and there are things that are impacting our budget. So we do just want to be very clear that there are a number of financial factors that we have to take into consideration. We still have the impacts of COVID-19. We would love to say that everything is done and everything is back up to speed, but that's not the case. We spoke earlier when this pandemic started and we started seeing the impacts of it, that this was not going to go away quickly and it was going to be a multi-year process in order to properly remediate the gaps that these students were going to be returning with. And that is still a tremendous focus, as you saw specifically through that ESSER funding and the Title I funding that we're using. As many of you have seen, inflation costs have started to be unprecedented, and we have increasing material costs and supply chain issues that we're facing, which are driving up numbers that are in the budget. We are in a negotiation year right now with Unit A, and we have contractual obligations that we will be required to meet. And we have escalating insurance costs. For those of you that follow the health and dental insurance patterns, the state, from what we're being told from Maya, our insurance provider, we're looking at a state average of about 6% of an increase this coming year. And as the school committee knows, we agreed to take on some additional Medicaid premiums for some of our retirees that did not qualify for Medicaid at first. And we want to make sure that they're getting those heightened services and taking advantage of the Medicaid program. So the district will be absorbing some of those penalties. And we've committed to trying our very best to fund OPEB, the other post-employment benefits. And we will be working with the towns to make sure that we get to a place where people feel comfortable with this. And additionally, we are going to be taking out a new contract this coming year for FY23 and the upcoming years on transportation. And between the costs of fuel and the serious bus driver shortage, we are anticipating seeing some relatively significant cost increases to our transportation.
So what's in the FY23 budget, in addition to some of the factors and some of the drivers that Matt has mentioned, I know that the committee has seen these before, so I'm not going to walk through them. But you see very strong evidence of our focus on our district blueprint. And you can see that we're moving forward with our curriculum work, and we are continuing our focus on social emotional learning and supports, our work around diversity, equity, inclusion. And so there's a lot that we have put in place through our FY22 budget that we would like to continue with our FY23 and some of the work that we need to advance as we move forward. Likewise, ours on strategic staffing, and this is updated. So let me share with the committee, there were 2 bullet points that were not on the packet that went out. They were in the budget numbers, but they were left off of slide 11. So we did update them here. So your slide 11 looks slightly different than what's in the, on the slide deck. The positions at the top of the slide deck, we've discussed. We talked about those in our prioritization budget conversation in December. We added to those the full-time athletic director. I know it was a question of one of our committee members, so we did put that in. And we did include, as we mentioned, our 4 additional permanent building subs. So these are individuals that would come in day to day without being called and would just be assigned to whatever classrooms where coverage is needed. Each building has 1 currently. This would bring them to 2. And I know as a school committee, there have been conversations in the past about, you know, which way is better, which way is more cost efficient. And so I know we've had that conversation, and we just increased our wages slightly for our subs. But in this draft of FY23, it does have present 2 permanent building subs in each building. Matt, maybe I was trying to zoom in on that. I won't do that again. Hang on. This is slide 12 is very hard to read. I acknowledge that, but in the back of your packet, we printed out a copy so you can look at that and see it very clearly. And if you look at the packet that's posted online, for those of you at home, and there is our packet, like all of our packets are posted under our school committee section on our webpage. You'll see this page much more clearly.
Thank you for that, Jason.
Yeah.
And while I know that everyone wants to dive directly into the numbers, they're there for you to do so. But I would like to just take a little bit of time to explain what we're looking at. Dr. DeFalco and I did change the presentation of this expense budget a little bit. In the past, what we have looked at is a 1-column budget. We put revenues from all different sources at the top, and we put all of our expenses, regardless of where that funding was coming from, meaning whether it was coming from the general fund or from a specific grant. We put all of those costs into the specific function code areas that you can see when you look at the column labeled the total FY22 budget. So that's a 1-column budget that we have looked at in the past. This year, what we have done, and this is at the recommendation of the Department of Revenue, because technically when we look at the budget and approve the school committee budget, the school committee, while we acknowledge all of the uses of other funds, the school committee is really approving the general fund budget. So if you look at the general fund for FY23, you will see various expenses that are charged specifically to the general fund. And then we've added, basically what we've done is broken out the expenses that come from other funds, such as the ESSER 2 grant. You can see the column for the ESSER 3. You can see fees that include our athletic fees and our user fees for music, and also our pre-K fees. We have a Title I grant. This is actually not all of the columns that we will end up presenting in the end, but this is the bulk of these are the largest funds, And we're using this to demonstrate the budget being broken out across multiple columns so that you can see specifically where each one of these grants or where each one of these funding sources is paying. So you can see the function code that each one of these grants is paying for specifically. So you can see that in the fees column, there's $55,000 that will go toward athletics and the $15,000 that will go toward music costs. Similarly, we mention circuit breaker many times. We're not talking about the electricity specifically. I know there are people that are new that may be thinking that makes sense. We probably have a lot of electrical panels. Circuit breaker is that reimbursement that we receive for special education costs. And you can see that that's why those funds get allocated towards helping pay the costs of out of district transportation, tuition to collaboratives or non-public programs. Those are all of our out of district costs. So I want to make sure that everyone is understanding, in order to compare apples to apples, if we look at the total FY22 column and move toward the bottom, you'll see the total number listed there as 25,975,000. That's a number that should be familiar to people from the last round of budget workshops from FY22. One of the numbers that is not included in that, and I highlighted it in yellow so that, again, it's apples to apples, is the ESSER 3 funding that we received. I want to be very clear. We discussed the ESSER 3 funding. We proposed how we were going to use it. The plans were approved by the school committee, as was the funding. However, when we did our initial presentation of the budget, the ESSER 3 funds hadn't been allocated yet, so they were not included in the presentation. So those were added in order to compare apples to apples. Those were added at the bottom of the FY22 column. If you look at the total for the FY22 column, you're seeing the $26,220,749. And that is being compared to not just the general fund, but the expenses that are in all of the other columns as well. So when we sum up our total expenses for the district, we are looking at a total expense budget of $27,900,879. So for those that jump.
So Matt, just one second. You have all of the colors. So on the page we have the colors that are on the bottom of each column don't show up as the dollars under the, but that's just taken. So the green is green and the purple is the purple and the, okay.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Thank you for that, Jane. To be clear, on this slide, what I've done is in the original sheet that was presented, we didn't total out the columns. On this slide, what you can see is if you move from left to right across the slide, the total is totaled out on the right of the sheet, and you'll see it's highlighted in green, and that total is the $27,900,879. And then after the total of the general fund, we added, again, continuing down, we added those same numbers that are presented in the different columns, just straight down. And the addition, once again, comes out to the same number, the $27,900,879. And that's where you could see in that highlighted bold totals box, the total FY22 budget in expenses, not discussion of revenue yet. And we'll speak to that in a little bit, but the total expenses for 22 were $26,220,749. And the total expenses for the district operating costs are $27,900,879. What you're also not seeing here that does get presented in the final budget presentation, and Jason and I will be very clear and reiterate this, the cost of charter school sending tuition and the cost of sending students out for school choice is not in this expense column. We add those in at the end because those are actually taken directly out of our revenues. So we don't put those into the budget until we have our revenue numbers. And that's an easier way to show those costs. But these are the costs that the district determines. So when we look at these columns, these are the district determined operating costs for the total of FY22 and where we stand with, again, a very preliminary FY23 budget.
Makes sense.
Does anyone have any questions about the columns that were in that presentation or anything specific? Excellent.
Okay.
Again, Dr. DeFalco and I did take into consideration some things that we're anticipating that we will be able to adjust. And we identified those factors on this slide. Again, these are already incorporated into that number that we just presented. But we did factor in pre-purchasing the entire math curriculum. We're hoping to have enough funds at the end of this year to pre-purchase that curriculum for $150,000. We know that we're getting the CDC nursing grant next year, which will be applying to our health-related costs for $100,000. We assume that we can avoid that 6% increase in health and dental and move that to a 3% increase. If you recall, even though we're assuming some additional penalties for the Medicaid program that we're engaging in, we were told we would be given a 3% discount.
Mhm.
So the numbers that you see factor in a 6% increase with a 3% discount. We have our fingers crossed and we're still hopeful that we won't come in at a 6% increase and we may see something less than a 3% overall total increase. But again, those numbers probably won't come in till much closer to March, when the insurance companies are able to delineate a little further. We're also anticipating, I'm sure that you know, we received additional funds this past summer for our 21st Century Grant. We received additional funds for some of our technology costs that we had originally built in to our ESSER 3 and ESSER 2 funding for FY22. So we factored in some of the savings that we are going to see this year in our ESSER 3 and ESSER 2 funding, and we've applied those additional funds to offset the costs of our FY23 budget. So the beauty of ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 is they're both multi-year grants. ESSER 2 can be applied to both this year and next year, FY23. ESSER 3 can actually be applied for this year and then the following 2 fiscal years. We also were able to identify some areas where, though we still intend to work with some of our strategic partners, such as Focus Schools or I apologize, New England Base Camp. We plan. I was thinking of ANET, which we're no longer partnering with, but we are still partnering with New England Base Camp. But we were able to identify some additional costs that we could save in those relationships and expenses. And while we don't have a number listed, we anticipate circuit breaker funds once again being used to offset special education costs and using E&D funds to offset other one-time costs, such as whatever we contribute to OPEB this coming year and potentially other one-time, maybe facilities connected costs. So again, there are some very major considerations that we want to note. And the first of which is we do not have any of our revenue numbers yet. So as you can see, Dr. DeFalco and I are presenting this as an expense budget. We have presented everything that was prioritized by the district, by our school and cost center leaders, and we haven't gone into the process of removing any of those priorities. We are giving the school committee and the community the opportunity to see the upcoming budget workshops, which we'll identify the dates for shortly. And then after that process of identifying the priorities and really delving more deeply into what those are, we are hoping to come across our revenue numbers. The governor's budget was originally expected to be released on the 19th of January. I will tell you, there's an update that came out yesterday, possibly the day before. There was a press conference announced for January 26th, which is the expectation that that is now when the governor will release his budget in conjunction with that press conference, which happens to be the deadline for the release of the governor's initial budget. So we're hoping that shortly after January 26th, either the 27th or right at the beginning of February, we'll start seeing those early cherry sheet numbers that we look at. And those cherry sheet numbers are those numbers that identify specific either towns or regional district allocations for what those revenues are going to be. Again, at this point in time, minimum local contribution numbers have not been established. They're not published for the towns. So the minimum requirement for what the towns will have to contribute has not been set. Once again, we're hoping to see those numbers shortly. We always want to factor in that we are currently and probably forever will be a hold harmless district, which means our Chapter 70 funds will not be reduced, even though we may have seen decreases in our enrollment or other factors that impact our town's ability to pay or to raise funds. We are hold harmless, which means our Chapter 70 will never be reduced from year to year. However, we will only see what is referred to as minimal aid. So last year, that was an additional $35 per student. We're hoping that it's more. And we're also hoping to see some additional support with respect to the inflation that has taken place. So we're hoping to see inflation increases and some increases to our minimal aid. But again, we won't see those numbers until probably early February. Another big factor, the state is continuing to try to move towards the Student Opportunity Act being fully implemented. And as that happens, we are going to see increased costs going to charter programs, and our reimbursements are going to taper off more quickly, according to the funding that's outlined in the Student Opportunity Act.
So where do we go from here? And so our next steps, as we had opened the discussion earlier, that we will be launching into our workshops. And that's where we start to go through these numbers, start to reprioritize, and really have those discussions around what's in, what's out, what's reasonable, what can we do. And so we have the elementary and middle school on Thursday, the 20th, which is next Thursday. Then we have the high school and district-wide programs on the 24th. Oh, I should also mention, on the 20th, we'll hear from our math committee. The math committee will present to the school committee the work that they've been doing the past year and a half, and we'll be bringing forward a recommendation to the school committee for a new PK to 12 math program. That will be on Thursday, the 20th. Then, as I mentioned, we'll have the high school and district-wide programs on the 24th of January. We are going to be looking to schedule a joint meeting with our boards of selectmen, our finance subcommittees, the town administrators and school committee sometime early February. And then we'll continue to revise all the way through and up to our public hearing and school committee adoption of our FY23 budget on March 10th.
Okay.
I'm going to stop sharing so we can all see each other. Questions? It's a lot of information.
A lot of information. Yep, exactly. Anyone? I appreciate the effort that has gone into this. I know that it's many hours of looking at glue sticks and rubber bands, but I thought it read easier from my perspective, but can't say for others.
Yeah, that's great to hear, Jane. Thank you for that, because we're trying to find it's such a complicated thing because we are regional and because of how it's set up, and frankly, all of the revenue streams we have from outside of the towns in the state. We have a lot. We have a lot of, you saw the grants.
Yep.
So trying to show that picture in a way that it just makes sense to people. And so I'm definitely pleased to hear that feedback.
Thank you.
I think Tara had, I thought a hand raised, maybe not.
Just wanted to confirm when the principals and committees or staff present in the next couple of meetings, their numbers are already in this budget. They're just going to support why they're asking for. Okay, right. Perfect.
And then what we actually did, we will have and I really like the way that Matt has been talking about this, which is we don't know our revenues yet. Until we know our revenues, we need to be, really kind of thoughtful about what are we thinking we would want to take out or leave in, or because we don't actually know what the revenue numbers are yet. Right? So that kind of makes sense. But in preparation for when we get those, we will have a spreadsheet that actually has all of the new positions on them and all the amounts that they're in the budget to try to make it easier. So we're not rifling through tons of different packets. We'll have it all in one place and we can look at the costs and, and then obviously readjust the budget accordingly based on what the committee wants to prioritize. But right now they're all in, Tara, to your question.
Anyone else? Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
So I'm excited for next Thursday to jump into.
And I do have a question, sorry.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Tammy.
When you talked about slide 9, on slide 9, we talked about growing transportation costs. Is there a like a bid system that goes in when we're going into a new contract year for busing?
Yep, I will be putting out a request for proposals or an invitation for bids very shortly to get transportation proposals presented. I will say that I have had initial conversations with a couple of transportation companies. So even in this initial draft of the budget, I have anticipated that we will be covering the costs that we should be seeing coming back in those bids. We obviously, all of this budgeting process is somewhat, trying to foreshadow what things will cost, but we believe that we're close and we'll have a solid transportation number in here.
And it would be my guess, Matt, that we're such a small district does the bidding process historically, it's probably a low number of people that participate. Okay,
it is
one. I thought maybe 2, since one is on one side of us and one is on the other. But I think that industry is going through some rough times too with the bus shortages, and then you have to, and then I think I had one more question, but I can't find it, so I guess I'm gonna roll with it.
Save it for Thursday.
Thank you for doing this. And it's always helpful to get that preliminary number and to stress to folks watching that, it's like preliminary, all capital letters, preliminary. It's where we start. We have to start somewhere. That's all.
And to your point, Tammy, this is we use the term very preliminary. Not sure that it's much different than preliminary, but I do want everyone to know that if you have specific questions or you do identify things that stand out to you later and you have wonderings, please feel free to email myself and Jason, and we can get those answers.
And we hope for a collaboration between people and comments along the way, and not wait till town floor to all of a sudden say, well, you didn't tell me about this. This does start the official, let's talk. What are your concerns? Send emails to school committee members, send emails to department chairs, to you folks. Don't hold, now's the time to let loose. Don't hold back now, because now we can address things, we can consider things, we can move things. Whereas when I think sometimes that last meeting before the vote, it's like all of a sudden it's, well, you didn't tell us about this. So now's the time. Let's start chatting.
And those workshops also are important. And those are recorded and presented to the public. So if people have questions and they're saying, well, we see all of these numbers, but we really don't know what's behind them, those workshops are the time when the principals and the cost center leaders go specifically through what their priorities are and what the major differences are that they're requesting from last year's budget into this year's budget. And it gives them the opportunity to explain the importance of those pieces. And it will allow the community and the towns to understand why these funds are being requested.
I can't agree more. That has been my argument for the years that I've been here. It's not just numbers. There are actions and lots of information behind the numbers that are on these pages. So.
Definitely. Okay. Well, that concludes my report. If there's no other questions, and I'll turn it over.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Aaronworth.
Speaking of money, I'll go into, we'll go right back to FY22, which I'm happy to say things are going well. If you take a look at the total revenue report that you have in your package, you can see that we are collecting revenues as anticipated. There's nothing that stands out on this sheet. The only thing that I would like to point out and say that I'm very happy to see, we have started collecting the ESSER 3 funds that are now coming in from the state and from the government. So we'll see that collection column increasing. Another thing that I can also share is I believe that we will be doing very well and surpassing our anticipated revenue with respect to our Medicaid program. So originally, these numbers were budgeted relatively conservatively over the past couple of years because we're transitioning into a new Medicaid claiming process. But I can say that with much thanks to our special education department and our service providers who have been diligently putting in the work that they are doing with our students. So what ends up happening is the service providers, for whether it's occupational therapy, psychological services, any kinds of services covered under special education, we put in those claims and the work that's happening, and then Medicaid will reimburse the district for some portions of those costs. And they have been doing a tremendous job, and I thank them and I encourage them to keep putting in those claims because we are seeing the results of that. And we will have I saw that we just were notified of additional funds that will be coming in revenue for Medicaid, and I'm hoping that they will be collected and indicated in this chart for the next presentation of our revenue review.
Good to hear.
With regards to our general fund expenditure review. At the recommendation of one of the committee members, Mr. Howell, thank you. I did work with the business department and our payroll specialist and accounts payable specialist, and did reclassify some of the costs that we had spoken about. Earlier, you saw that there were some numbers that were very high, and there were some more numbers that were in the red, and there was a little bit more fluctuation. And that was because of where certain expenses were potentially being just charged to, where they may have been budgeted to one line, but administrative assistants at a building level might have put a purchase order in for, into a different funding line. So we've done a lot of work, and we've tried to clean that up so that we can get a more accurate picture of exactly where you're seeing some of these red numbers. And what you will see is there's significantly less red numbers. A few things worth pointing out just as we are revisiting this sheet. We do still have current available balances in the classroom teachers, that 2305 function line. That's actually, to be clear, there were 11 teachers that were replaced between when we budgeted and when we are going into this fiscal year, that they were replaced with faculty that have come in at lower salaries. So that number is actual savings that we are seeing in salaries right now, and we anticipate that to stay the same. With respect to the 2310 line, our classroom teachers that are special education teachers, there were 9 teachers that came in under budgeted, again, from replacements of teachers that were originally put into the budget at higher rates. And we currently have 2 teachers, 2 positions that are unfilled. So sometimes you will see these numbers fluctuate, and that could be because a teacher retires and gets replaced with another teacher, or we have positions that are currently unfilled, or someone leaves and it's unfilled for a short period of time, and then we do fill it. So again, it would be in an ideal world, none of these numbers would change right from the start of the process. But as we move through the year, they do fluctuate somewhat. Another number that has fluctuated a bit is the instructional assistant line, that 2330 line, which shows an available balance. There are still some positions that have those people have left the district, and we're in the process of replacing those positions, which is why you'll see that savings in that column. I anticipate that most of that available balance will disappear as we move through the course of the year. If you look at the back of the general fund review, you'll note the 9300 and the 9400 function codes at the bottom of the page. I think that it was getting a little confusing flipping between the general fund and the grant fund expenditure review. And to committee member Howell's point, we were showing a significant red number on this page, and then we had a surplus in the circuit breaker funding. So I did make an adjustment to these function codes, where now what you will see in the FY22 budgeted column is the entire amount that was budgeted for those costs, whether we're going to cover them with circuit breaker or general fund. So that's the cost for the out of district placements, whether it's for out of state or in state to collaborative programs. And you can see that we are showing some balances that are left in those spots. I can speak to that and say that with regard to that 9300 line, the non-public programs, there is $124,000 of that is being charged to the circuit breaker account. So it shows as a surplus here still, but that's because we have funds that are being charged to the circuit breaker account. Additionally, there are some savings that we are going to see in this line. And that is because we have 2 students that were originally budgeted for when we were moving into this fiscal year. And those students are aging out of their out of district placements. So while it's not an entire year worth of tuition, we are going to see some savings in that line because these 2 students are aging out of their programs. Similarly, we've seen some savings or, available funds in that 9,400 line, which again is a large cost to the district. This line I did leave offset by the IDEA funds or Fund 240. So we do have some of these funds being covered by the IDEA grant, which you'll see on the grant expenditure side. But they're showing a current balance that is available of about $267,000. Some of those savings are actual. We do have 3 students that had changes that took place with respect to their placement. We have 1 student that was estimated to cost $124,000 for their placement, and that student ended up not attending out of district. So again, that's a testament to the work that we're doing in district and Jill and her special education programs to maintain our students within district and provide them the appropriate education that they require here in BMR. We also have a couple of students that it shows a savings still right now. We're not sure if that savings will remain. One of those students is attending a charter program and the student was budgeted to go out of district, but those expenses haven't been incurred yet because the charter program is still working with the family and determining whether or not that student will go out of district or not. And in the event that they do, that cost is still the expense of the district for BMR. We have another student as well that was slated to go to a collaborative program, and the parent has currently chosen to homeschool that individual. However, that can change at any time. So again, while we see some of these available balances, we want to emphasize when we put these budgets together, we try to be conservative and we try to budget for the most of the expenses that we will see. And then certain decisions get made and kids are pulled from programs or parents choose to homeschool, and that will lead us to seeing some of these balances still left.
Matt, I think you just underscored exactly what Tammy was saying about behind the numbers are a lot of different stories and a lot of different information. Your overview of this year's current budget around special ed just highlights that.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's been a lot of information. So, I mean, if there are questions, please feel free to ask. If there are specific questions regarding some of the special education programs, we obviously can't speak to the students. But if you do have questions, I know Ms. PG can provide those answers. And you can reach out to either myself via email or her via email. And that would also be a good way for us to have some additional dialogue about those. If you look at our grant, so before I move to the grant fund expenditures, which has very happily little to explain, are there questions with respect to the general fund review report? Excellent. Great. And again, as always, if questions do come up or you need some clarifications, please feel free to email me at any time. And again, if you look at the grant fund review, you can see where circuit breaker is listed in that Fund 28. I still listed the expenses that we're going to be charging to the circuit breaker fund so that we can see that those funds are being utilized. However, to the right where I've put which function code that grant or reimbursement offsets, I removed the offset for circuit breaker. So I want to be very clear. That's why you're not seeing that negative number in the out of district on the general fund, because originally I had removed the cost from the budget and said that it was budgeted for circuit breaker, which in fact it is, but it was a little confusing going back and forth between the two. So now we can track the expenses from circuit breaker, but all of the funds budgeted in that 9,300 line are on the general fund review. Otherwise, all of our grant funds are coming in and they're being spent down as we planned on. And as all of you know, we don't anticipate there being any variances with respect to our grant funding because it's very tightly regulated by the state and federal government. And we make sure that we're monitoring that and sticking to all of the appropriate guidelines. Are there questions about the grant fund review? Excellent. So I have also included in the package the personnel changes as of January 1st, 2022. And with respect to facilities, there are no major facilities changes happening or facilities updates with respect to ongoing work. But I would like to mention everyone is aware and becoming much more acutely aware of our capital planning process that we've been undergoing. And I'm very happy to say that Dr. DeFalco and I have been in constant communication with the towns and really trying to make sure that we're making ourselves and other of the subcommittee members available to the towns. And we currently have a meeting scheduled with the Blackstone Capital Outlay Committee for January 19th. And we have a meeting scheduled with the Millville Capital Outlay Committee for Tuesday, February 1st. The remaining pieces of the facilities report are approvals for facilities usage.
Okay, and we have two. The first is from the Knights of Columbus to use the AF Maloney, it looks like gymnasium on Tuesday, next Tuesday, 6 o'clock. I assume there's no basketball there.
It's the jump rope for heart, if people are wondering what that is. And it's the 20th. Yeah. The 20th, I think, is the Thursday.
Yeah. Oh, it looks like yeah.
Yeah, they were trying to get it the Tuesday, but there was no school committee meeting, so they moved it to the 20th. She shouldn't change the date on it.
Okay.
Actually, isn't this the free throw contest, Jason?
In checking with the principal, she told me it was the jump rope for heart, that they do it every year.
The Knights of Columbus is usually a free throw.
It's a free throw, yeah.
Yeah, they've been working on that in the elementary right now.
The kids,
Maybe they just mixed up on.
Do it during PE and then they move to the next level. My only question was going to be is the size of the group attending. It's usually shoulder to shoulder in that auditorium. And it does say here, persons attending 100. So with the changes we made last week with no visitors during the school day, my question was going to be, are we going to limit the capacity? Because this will be, it's usually families of the students, but that's a lot of people in a little space.
In the gym?
In the AFM gym. That's usually where they hold it.
Could we apply the athletic director's direction on this with limiting the number and issuing tickets to those that are parent, guardian, or family members?
I guess that 100 is probably 2 or so parents per student. We might already be at that.
I mean, we may, perhaps what we can do is work with them where they do, it's not everybody at once. In other words, the third graders are at 6 o'clock and the fourth graders are at 7 o'clock. And
like how we did the concerts and broke it down by, we could do something similar like that.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're happy to do that with us. If it's the free throw, It's a basketball
Free
thing.
throw.
That will probably be easier than the jump rope.
Correct. Right. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, somebody want to make a motion to accept
I make
that?
a motion to approve their request.
Second.
Second.
All right. Any more discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone want to abstain? Okay. And the second one is for the Green Roy Academy of Irish Dance. And they're looking at the auditorium and cafeteria for June 10th, 11th, and 12th. So it's a weekend. It would not be while school was, at the high school, right? Yeah, at the high school. Not while school is in session, but who knows what June will be. I'll entertain a motion to approve that, and then we can have discussion.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. So does anybody have any questions, concerns about this one?
Looking at their attendance of 300 to 400 people, I know it looks like a dance thing over the weekend, but I'm concerned about the numbers of people and being a super spreader event.
And what we've done with situations like this is we can do a tentative approval and then check back in with, if you remember, we had a few of these last year.
Yeah.
And then we checked back in as we got closer to the date, and some we were able to hold and some we couldn't, Tim, to what you were saying. We had to cancel a couple, and then others we were fine. We were able to do them. So we could always do a tentative approval based on where things are at by June. Could hopefully.
They also have listed here, they want, she's asking for 3 days, but only if one is unavailable. Is that right?
Yeah, it says top choice, please, but requesting if above was unavailable. So I don't think they need Sunday unless they can't have Friday and Saturday.
Well, so worst case scenario, if we have to limit the capacity, perhaps they do a show on each of the 3 days?
I don't know.
Well, one's a rehearsal. So dance
Yeah.
recitals are a rehearsal one night and then you have the show the next
The show 2 nights.
day.
Okay.
And so they're saying you do the rehearsal and we'll have the show either Saturday or Sunday, whatever, if there was one that was better for us.
Mhm.
If we, approve with further discussion, I would just request that everything is in writing. So these dance anyone who's holding an event for 300 people, it's not just a dance company, is counting on the place that they're holding it. And obviously if it's, I just think that they need written notice. I just recall one of the situations last year where it was a little more willy-nilly than it probably should have been for, people who are counting on this and kids are counting on this. And it's a big deal for this group of people. So just to make sure that we're clear and that, we have some check-in dates that will, have a cutoff. And, I don't know what their cutoff would be if they had to go somewhere else, but.
That was last year. I'm trying to remember the group, they had asked they gave us a date and said our drop dead date is, and they gave us that drop dead date. I remember that.
Yeah.
I can't think of the name of the group, Tammy, but I do remember that situation.
Yeah, and it was just sort of like I don't remember exactly, so I don't want to misspeak to it, but I just think that our decision something should be sent to them in writing and give a date and I know COVID is unfortunately
part of me wonders
more
if we
fluid
should,
thing, but
yeah, but part of me wonders if we shouldn't have some kind of disclaimer on our forms that they fill out that essentially says, approval will be pending the status of gatherings at the time, and whether it's a 2-week notice or whatever notice it is, but even then things can change on a dime.
Can we require them to clean and sanitize the facilities after use? if we're looking at that. I mean, I understand we may be limited from the state as far as being able to have gatherings of that size, but they're going to be using the building.
Well, they pay fees. They pay.
Yeah, they pay a custodian, right? That
Yeah.
would be, so that would essentially be on us to have the custodian.
And I think the liability is on us to make sure that things are healthy and sanitized when our students return. Because I mean, I don't know this dance company. I make no judgment, but I have seen, how dance companies and other companies have kind of, they'll say, sure, we'll pick up, but.
There's a lot of bobby pins and glitter left
you go.
behind after a dance competition,
There
folks.
you go. I was trying to be polite, Tammy, because I don't
Well,
know
that
what
is polite. Listen,
Irish-
us dance
Irish
moms
step
don't get
dances.
easily offended about our glitter and sparkle.
I'm laughing because my 12-year-old is in part of a dance group, and he hates that aspect.
Yep. Yep.
We just had a dance company in, I think it was middle or early November. And I think this being June, I personally don't have any reservations.
No.
I was going to
Unless,
say.
I mean, if the state comes in and we're shut down, then that's a different.
Then that's a different story. That's what I say too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I
Aaron?
think it's cut and dry if it's a state shutdown, but I do think as a district, we sometimes take more precaution than the state requires us. So I think that's the gray area that we have to be careful and fair to the other folks. I mean, it's easier to say no and have them find something if we're gonna at the last minute take a stance that we want to be more careful than the state is requiring. I think that's I would rather say no than take a more careful stance than the state requires at the last minute and have these people trying to find a new place for their 200 kids.
Yeah.
Right.
Aaron, you were gonna say something? No?
Me?
Yeah, no? Amanda, did you want to say something?
I was just saying that I'm hoping by June.
Yeah.
This isn't a problem.
I think we were all saying that, Erin.
Right.
We're all hoping.
About the glitter and the sparkle as much as the germs being left behind.
We've been
I
saying that
guess-
for years.
My question is, I mean, if they're paying to rent our facility and we rent it to them, how much liability do we really have? Is that on us to say you can only have so many people here? Because they could easily say, okay, we'll cut down on the amount of people, and then they all just show up. Not that I'm really like they're going to do whatever they do, but we're not responsible for that, are we?
The
So right
reality
now,
is it only
right
takes
now,
one
there's no-
person to spread.
Right, but right now there are no mandates against sizes of gatherings, so.
Right.
I don't see that coming back either. If they
I
were,
don't
gonna do it, they'd be doing it. We're in the
I don't either.
We're in the
threshold of.
yeah,
Graduation is the week before, right? That's not the same Friday, right?
correct. That's
That's our
right.
main-
That's the first thing I checked. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, like, if they're renting our facility, then we're not really.
No, there's no
many
liability on the
people-
part of the school district for organizations or anyone that's renting the facility if
Right.
someone gets COVID or anything happens to them.
Yeah. That's their choice. All right, cool.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of approving this with the stipulation that we will revisit closer to the time that makes sense for both parties, say aye.
I
Aye.
Hi.
Anyone opposed? Anyone wanting to abstain? Okay.
Who reaches out to find what's a reasonable time for both parties?
Thank you.
I'm gonna have Catherine do that.
Like I feel like that's the ball that's ready that drops.
I'm gonna have Catherine do it tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to personally get into glitter and bobby pins, but I'm sure Catherine does. I'm sure Catherine doesn't mind checking on that.
We did the
Yeah.
glue sticks and staples. Someone else could
She
do the
can
glitter,
glitter
and bobby
pins. There you go.
I just think
I've
it
seen
gives them
dance
the
mom shows, I'm
opportunity.
afraid.
Gives them the opportunity to research, look for other places that might
Yep.
not have that stipulation.
Yep.
Makes sense.
Is that it, Mr. Aaron Worth?
That is it for my report.
All right, thank you very much. Is there anyone that has a school committee member that has an issue or comments they would like to make?
I do, but 1 second.
Whoop.
I need to verify a date of something. 1 second.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, we'll wait for Aaron. In the meantime, our next meetings were on the slides we saw earlier, but we have a workshop, which is virtual, but January 20th, but please come, ready. These workshops are difficult. I mean, they're very productive when we sit around a table and we really get after it, and we're going to have to try to make that happen in a virtual environment. And so I would appreciate everybody's commitment to the long haul of listening and asking questions and moving the agenda forward so that we can give everybody the due diligence that they need to put the best budget forward to our communities for our districts. So that's the 20th. Then we have another one on the 24th. We have a school committee meeting on, oh, no, we don't. Are we canceling the 27th, Jason?
It's February 17th.
Yeah, so we're switching it's a schools committee workshop, January 27th. We're switching that to February 17th. That was the one where we were doing the blueprint with Carrie. Not our Carrie, but Carrie.
Carrie Purcell. Yeah.
Thank you.
And she's going to be in person, Jane. So by then we should be able to hopefully have that back. And
I hope
Jane,
so.
I'm sorry. I was trying to find the sheet that had the list. Can you repeat what you just said?
Yeah, so it's January 20th at 6 o'clock. That's virtual. January 27th at 6 o'clock. That's virtual. You probably had a January 27th on your calendar. You can eliminate that.
January 27th?
Yep, but change it to February 17th.
You said the 27th twice, so I think you meant the 20th,
So,
the 24th, and then
20th,
the 17th.
24th, and then no 27th.
Are we sure we don't need the 27th? I think that's a good one for us to sit and look at everything like that we've heard. And or is there another meeting after the 17th where we're gonna really?
So the 17th is not about budget at all. The 17th is about the blueprint. So for the budget,
February
we have
17th.
February.
that's the February 17th. So we have January 20th and we have January 23rd. Then we have a regular school
No,
committee
24th.
24th.
Oh my God.
Jane,
Well, if people would type with bigger type, I could read it. January 20th, 6 o'clock, workshop virtual. January 24th, 6 o'clock, workshop virtual. Then we won't meet on budget again until we meet with the town. So to Tara's point, do we want to meet as a school committee and keep the 27th to kind of, we've heard what we've heard. Just so we are clear, the superintendent would not be there at that meeting on the 27th. So it would just be us and maybe Matt. Poor Matt. Sorry, Matt.
So the blueprint.
I'm pretty
meeting-
invested in the budget process. It's okay.
The blueprint meeting with Carrie is February 17th.
February 17th.
and the time and it's live.
That's live and in person.
5:30.
Middle school at what time?
5:30.
5:30.
Thank you, Jason, and everyone.
Who sent the invite for that?
Who did or who will?
No,
I
Can we
sent
just-
the invites for the workshops. I'm going to
So I
send
have one-
I'll change the invite as we're right now for the 27th of January to go to the 17th of February.
Yeah, it won't let me edit.
Yep, I'm happy to do that. I just did it.
Okay, thank you.
Ta-da.
I'm good with going on the 27th, even though Dr. DeFalco won't be there.
All right. How about anybody else?
What day of the week is that? I don't have it.
Thursday.
But that's going to be virtual anyway, right?
Yeah, it would be virtual.
And I guess my next question was, should we consider being in person for that one? Because I think we do work better.
I think,
Stuff.
I think we do, Tara. I think we do, but you know,
Is it a push?
That's okay. Come on.
Too much of a risk?
Come on.
I have no idea.
We could, I mean, yeah, we could be fine by next week. I mean, honestly,
Right.
it's like
Right.
this thing is.
I've heard it's peaking.
Yeah.
It's
I
peaking
heard-
behind every corner is what it's peaking, but that's
Or the next variant will be out by then, so.
there you go. Pie. Ooh, chocolate pie. No. So I have 3 people who would be in favor of the 27th. How about others?
I could do that if we're doing it.
But what
As
are we
long as
working
someone
with?
puts it on my calendar, I'll be there.
But what is the purpose of it? Is it to go through, we don't have the line by line?
No, well, at that point, we should have, by the 27th, we should have heard from all of the different departments and cost center managers and schools. And we should have, well, we would have listened to the governor's speech.
I was gonna say it is
that would be-
unlikely that by that time
Unlikely,
we'll
yeah.
have
Yeah.
specified revenues for the district.
So I was just.
Maybe we
gonna
need
say-
it to be a week later or something.
Well, we
Maybe
have a
it's a
school, don't
different
we have a
date.
school committee meeting the first, or in,
We do, it's the 10th,
yeah.
February 10th. Yeah.
I just think we need that meeting whenever it has to be, once we have those numbers, when we can realize we need to cut X amount or we're good, or we have to have those discussions. And I just feel like we don't want to lose that meeting.
Yeah.
So we could have February 3rd.
Did we just say something? Oh, no, the first.
But somewhere in there, we've got to put in a joint town one, but that's okay.
I
But that should
believe
come
the
after we have
numbers
our
should be
meeting.
out.
Yeah, it's got to be after our meeting.
After
It's
we
gotta be
do,
after our-
yeah.
Yeah,
I
don't
believe
go
our,
to the
I
3rd.
believe our revenue numbers should be into the cherry sheets by February 3rd.
okay.
I cannot make any promises, though. I just,
So if we forego the meeting on the 27th, and we have all the documentation on the 3rd, then we can do
Yeah.
what we need to do.
Yeah, so why don't we cancel the 27th of January and tentatively hold the 3rd of February?
And that would be a live workshop.
Yes.
Okay. I'll send an invite to everybody now for the 3rd of February.
And then my question is, do these meetings get updated on the website?
You have to ask
Yeah,
Catherine.
so we have to have
I'm having a hard time with that because when my calendar's telling me one thing, my mind is telling me another. I go to the website and they're hardly ever there. So that does not help me clarify, which then for other people outside, that's all they have to go for. They don't have my text to Tara saying, are we meeting tonight? I have mixed information on my papers. Like right now that I have 14 crossouts on that January 27th.
Okay.
But I don't know. I think, aren't we supposed to post the date ahead
Everything
of
is
time?
posted. I just don't know if Catherine's changing the master calendar when there's a meeting change. I have to ask her that.
I go to that list. There's it says meeting information and there's a list of meetings.
Yeah, I'll check with
That's
Catherine.
the one I'm not sure if it's getting updated. It may be somewhere else that I'm not looking.
Is that the one that we approve at the beginning, in the beginning of the summer? And that probably never gets updated.
Yeah, I don't think she's updating that.
Yeah. But
So
the
if
school
I'm
calendar
Joe Schmo Public, where am I looking? Because I'm on school committee and that's where I'm looking. Because it says on the school committee page,
post the
school
meetings,
committee meetings.
Tammy.
I
I
would
think
think
that-
if
yeah.
I go to the school committee meeting
I'll
tab.
put them wherever you guys want. I'll put them
I
wherever
just-
you
I'm
want.
asking
Aren't they
for
usually on the
just-
Blackstone page, Tammy?
We run them everywhere we're
No, our
supposed to. They get
school
email
committee-
blasts to everybody. I will put them wherever you guys want me to put them. I just want to make.
BMRSD.net.
I think Tammy's point is to look into the future because
Yeah.
we do post everything and it's always posted, but it's posted 48 hours in advance or 72 hours.
I
in
get
advance.
it. Yeah.
And if somebody's trying to look for their long-term schedule, or
Yeah,
Tammy
well-
was trying to look at the next 2 months, there was no easy place to find it.
I'm gonna fix it. I'll fix it myself. We'll get it fixed.
Well,
It's fine. I just want to fix it and go.
Agreed.
We'll do it.
All right, so now I have the 20th at 6, the 24th at 6, potentially the 3rd live at 6, the 10th is a regular school committee meeting, and the 17th live at 5:30.
Yes, and the only one we need an invite for, I'm doing now, is for the 3rd at,
Cancel 17 at 3.
yep. Got it.
Okay. All right, Aaron, did you find your date?
I don't have a date. It's
Oh.
just an introduction that the Empty Bowl will be happening this year and more
Oh.
details will follow.
Oh,
So I will
great.
let you, as I know that
Okay,
it
great.
is in progress of being planned. And just a note for the meeting, the February 10th and 17th, could I please have a Zoom link for just, I'll remind you then, but I will not be able to come in person. And I don't want to miss Carrie Purcell.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? We will have as many meetings as we can before February 11th. Sorry, Sarah. Okay.
I know that
I'll entertain a
Didn't
motion
understand what
to,
you were saying.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Second.
Second,
All those in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Thank you all very much, and thank everyone for the work that was put into